What up, guys? It's Mr. E here, Equinoxide if you follow me on Twitch. I heard you guys might be looking for an up-to-date tutorial on Hero Siege. Well, look no further, because what I have prepared for you is everything you need to know to get started. So, with that being said, let's jump right on. First things first, when you get to the main menu of Hero Siege, you'll see that there's an options menu. Go ahead and click that. And this is actually the only place where you can change your refresh rate. So, if you happen to be like me, and you have a decent monitor that can go for 60 Hertz, this is where you'd be able to change those Hertz to be able to get more frames. Alright, so let's go ahead and go online. And first things first is you have to decide, do I want to play seasonal or do I want to play hardcore? So this is seasonal in the hardcore selection. Make sure you choose what you want. Next up, you'll be having to choose which character you want. As far as characters go, you are offered a decent amount of characters to choose. So choose the one that you think is best. I went ahead and chose Redneck. Once you get into the lobby, you'll have the opportunity to change some stuff such as your region. But one of the things I recommend doing first is making sure that you pick a guild, or create a guild I should say. Making a guild is pretty awesome because it gives you the opportunity to get more experience, more damage, and more movement speed later on. And this is factored into clearing areas, killing monsters, and getting XP. As you're gaining XP, your guild rep goes up, and the more guild rep you have, the better. Once you decide to make a game, you have the option of changing its difficulty. Difficulty meter can be slid, and the farther the difficulty, the more experience, the more health and damage monsters will have, and then the better chances of you getting like drops. I don't recommend at the beginning sliding it all the way to max, but try what you like and see what works for you. Once you're in the game, first thing you need to do is see that you have 1 point to use, so just go ahead and throw it into a skill. It's definitely recommended. Next thing you want to do is pick up your item you get for free and walk over to the sign that has a question mark. That's going to start a quest line for you that allows you to get some free stuff after you're done. So it's definitely worth it to walk over and hit all of the question marks. That way, once you get through the first area, the quest will be completed. Once you make it into town, you'll see that this NPC over here, the mayor, has a question mark over his head. That tells you that you completed your quest, and he'll drop you a couple potions. This is literally the only way to get a potion for the whole first difficulty of normal mode. So if you want a potion, make sure you do this quest. It's definitely recommended. Next, you'll see that there's another quest line that the mayor offers. He basically wants you to walk around and talk to all the NPCs. It's a very easy quest, and I definitely recommend doing that as well. And then while you're walking around, make sure you just pick up all the other quests in town while you're at it. All of those are also pretty easy, and it's a very good way to level up towards the beginning of a new game. In each town, there's a stash box. And in this stash box, you can store up to 100 items that you decide to keep for later. Whether it be equipment, weapons, runes, whatever it might be, you can store it in here for future use. And there's tabs that sort everything out pretty easily. One thing to keep in mind is you always start with 100 slots, either in your inventory or stash. So if you decide to expand upon this, I definitely recommend that you buy the expansion pack. That way you get 100 extra slots in your stash and on your inventory. In every town, there's a teleportation portal. This portal opens up the whole map and allows you to teleport freely to each area that you have discovered via waypoint. This makes it way easier so you don't have to run the whole map stage to stage to stage. In each town, there's also a smith that you can sell items to. Click the sell button and select the items that you want to sell Some items might be just white, blue, or yellow rarity, and you might not want to keep them at all. This is a good way to get gold, to make sure you sell all the stuff you decide not to keep. If you decide to sell something and you didn't mean to sell it and you want to buy it back, there is a button up here on the top left that you can click on. It's a buyback button. Once you click on that button, you go in and you literally just buy it back. It's that simple and that easy. There is also the option to sell all if you decide you don't want to keep anything that is listed under that category. You'll find that as you're playing, you'll find items that have what seems to be sockets on them. Those items can be socketed by runes or gems. So what you want to do is you'll want to go to your gems section and you'll want to find what you have, if you do have anything. And then you'll go to the item, you'll right click on it, and you'll say socket. Once you select the socket, you can then take and socket the gem. If you decide later on, hey, I don't want this item in my socket, I want to take it out, all you have to do is go back to the sell items page, and then you'll select the item you want to unsocket, and you'll see that there's a button down below, for example J, so you'll just click the button to unsocket it. Keep in mind though, everything that you end up unsocketing gets destroyed. The item itself is completely saved, but if you unsocket, the socketed items will be gone. The Smith also has a crafting section. Inside this section you'll see accessories, gems, items, and even mining. The mining section is locked until you finish the questline for the miner that's an NPC in town. Inside the accessories section you'll see that there's options to craft keys and merge legendary powder. None of this is going to come in handy at the beginning, so let's just go ahead and skip it. In the items section you'll see you can craft mythical items, legendary items, and rare items. This is very important early on because you can craft rare items and legendary items using gold, and this is where selling items to the smith to get gold really comes in handy, because this is what will boost you along your gameplay way quicker. In the gems section, this is where you'll find all of the gems you have collected. You can also upgrade them here if you want to craft them into a better type of gem. You can also upgrade your runes to different types of runes as well. We don't have any right now, so let's just go ahead and skip this area. By pressing the escape key, you'll see that a tab will pop up that'll give you multiple options, such as vote reset, your options tab, and the save and exit. Vote reset is used to refresh the whole game. That way you can go through and clear maps again over and over again. It won't delete your progress, it'll just respawn all the mobs and bosses you have killed. Let's go ahead and click on options. In options, this is just like the first time you clicked it at the beginning that I showed you, but you can do this from within game. You'll see right here that the refresh rate is blocked out though. Like I showed you, you can't change it from within the game. Going through and making sure all of these are the way you like it right off the bat will make the gameplay so much more fun and enjoyable. I definitely recommend doing this once you first get to town. You'll see that there's combat text. Go ahead and click on this button so that you can go through and change colors to the way you like it, such as the ability damages, the healing color, and the critical damage colors. All of this could make it way more enjoyable for you as a player if you go in and tweak it the way you like. There's also chat settings, such as being able to turn general chat off. Sometimes there's a lot of toxicity in this game through the general chat. So if you don't want to see that stuff, it's easy, just turn it off. This also enables you to see game chat for your guild and trade chat. Not very many people use the trade chat though, so I wouldn't even have it enabled, to be honest. This next section is based off of your minimap. So if you want to change the colors of your minimap to make it more visible and easier to read, this is where you would do that. Below all that is a DPS meter, which allows you to see how much damage you're doing per second. And then also there's an option to see boss abilities when they're about to cast skills and stuff on you. It might be easy for you to see if you go ahead and select it. I personally don't like it, so I don't run around having the boss abilities enabled. Once you've done a little bit of fighting, you probably can tell right away whether or not the presets under the controls options are actually working out for you the way as intended. If they aren't working the way that you prefer, feel free to go into the controls section and keybind whatever you want. There's also the option to go into your config folder outside of the game and place different keys to hit different buttons if that's what you would like. In the controls settings, there's also an option to see your guild rep and to inspect your gear and other players' gear that's in the game with you. I recommend choosing a button that you don't use very often to activate this, such as Alt. I use left Alt to activate this because once you do activate this button, it will freeze you in game. So if you're playing hardcore like I am, there is a chance that you'll get killed by mobs or traps or something if you don't unhit the button. Once you're in this menu, you can right click on a player to inspect what they're wearing and or trade them. This is the only way to do one-on-one trading. In the in-game options, you'll see that you have the ability to filter your drops if you want. So you can make it so you don't see white items anymore or blue items or whatever item rarity you don't want to see anymore. You can uncheck it. Also, there's something that says rune filter. This has been added into the game multiple seasons ago and it still doesn't work, so just ignore this option. To bring up your map, you can either click M or Tab, depending on which map you want to see. Tab is what I usually click to see a little bit bigger map, that way I can see like the full map that I've explored. And the mini map up on the top right just allows me to see where I'm at currently. I definitely recommend keeping the mini map on the top right there as you play the game. It makes it way easier. In most towns, there is a test dummy that you can practice on. This way you can see how much DPS you're actually doing before you go out and try to kill monsters or bosses. I recommend using this to test out your skills to find out what you like and which skills work best for your gameplay. Having the DPS meter running while you're testing your skills out on the dummy is a very good way to find out how much damage you actually are doing per second. Keep in mind though, it's still a new option that they've added to the game, so it's not super accurate. I would say make sure you right click the little tab on the top of the DPS meter and reset it every once in a while so you can get a more accurate reading. In the town of Anoia, you'll find a beach ball that's just laying around. Sometimes you get a message in your general chat that will say Gaben walks the earth. It's going to be in like a pink text. So whenever you see that, what you can do is go back to the town of Anoia, pick up the beach ball and literally throw it at the dummy. This will spawn like a boss that's like a giant head. And once you defeat it, you'll unlock a Steam achievement and UI like overlay. So now that we have a few quests, why don't we head out to the first map, which is the outskirts of Anoia, start killing and collecting the pieces of the quest that we need, such as body parts and mining copper ore and looking for the coffee beans. Every one of these maps has a waypoint, and once you find that waypoint, go ahead and activate it. That way you can use it to fast travel between different parts of the map, including town. There are two different types of buff shrines in this game. One is an angelic and one is a demonic. The angelic will always give you a positive buff that is a smaller buff than the demonic shrine. The demonic shrine will always give about double the buff, but there's a 50-50 chance you'll also get a negative buff. So by selecting to run into a demonic shrine, beware that there are consequences. Within the maps, there is a chance to run into red portals. These red portals are breach portals that will summon a bunch of mobs to attack you. So be wary when you summon this portal or activate this portal, because you might get overran by mobs. So take it easy, kill one at a time until you finish. You might get lucky and get some really unique awesome drops, but as you progress through the game in difficulty, you'll start finding what's called battle fragments. These battle fragments can be used later on to go to another dimension to fight a unique boss in this game called Sung Lee. Sung Lee can only be fought in the hardest difficulty. Be wary of traps such as guillotines. When you get hit by it, you'll instantly have your health cut in half, and all it takes is 2 hits to kill you. So if you can, try not to run past guillotines, and watch out for the floor spikes. Floor spikes will also take a lot of your health away. This brings me to a good point, and that is this. The most important relic in all the game is to get a flight relic. Flight relics will allow you to fly over crevices, holes, and spike traps on the ground, and will take 0 damage, and give you the ability to just fly over top of things. It's very nice and convenient, and it's definitely the most important thing to try to find right off the bat if you can. It'll definitely save your life multiple times. If by chance you happen to find a relic called Horned Mask, it does say on there friends with demons. This is very, very helpful. Having this will allow you to touch demon shrines and only get positive buffs. In different maps you'll find a bunch of dungeons. This one is called the Rat Den, and the Rat Den is basically just a bunch of rats and mobs, and you just kill them. You have better chance at finding loot and or get rubies, which are used later on as currency to upgrade your gear and such. In your in-game settings, there is an option to select Relic Confirmation. By selecting this, you also have the option to walk up to a relic. When you go to click it, it won't automatically attach itself to you. It'll then say, do you want to pick this up or do you want to destroy? One thing to point out is if you have this option highlighted, once you go up to a relic, you kind of get frozen in spot. So if you're worried about dying to mobs and stuff around you, I don't recommend having this option enabled. Sometimes you'll find relics like lottery ticket, and if you happen to find those early on in the game, it's definitely worth picking up because they'll give you like 2,500 gold, which is very valuable to you at the beginning. What you can do is pick up the relic, and let's say you decide you don't want to keep it afterwards, but you still want the reward of the relic. You can pick it up, it'll give you the 2,500 gold, and then you could just go back to town, go back to the smith, and he has an option that says remove relics. By doing that, it'll remove the relics off of your relics page, and I mean all of them, because you can't drop one relic at a time. So if you're going to go through and remove your relics, make sure that there's none that you absolutely can't lose. But by doing this, you still get all of the gold from the lottery ticket, and now you don't have the lottery ticket taking up a space under your relics tab. Once you have all the quests completed for the town NPCs, I recommend that you leave out the coffee shop NPC, Sarcaster, until the end. The reason why, Sarcaster always drops 3 of the same items every time you do the quest. So there's a good chance you might find one of those items that you want off of an NPC first, and you don't get double the exact item. So turn in all the quests to the other NPCs first before you talk to Sarcaster. Sarcaster will always offer either a pair of boots, a chest plate, or a weapon. So before you decide to choose your option when he offers it to you, make sure you look at what you have on and see if what you have is actually good. That way you can decide right off the bat which item I want to pick off the ground, because it might be better than what I'm using right now. Once you're back in town, you'll notice that Dr. Tinkerdink has a quest for you. What he wants you to do is pick up this active relic and shoot it at enemies, and it will then increase their power, and he wants you to kill them. I find it easier to just back travel back to the intro area and then just shoot a couple of the mobs with the active relic there. This way you can get it done really fast and then just walk straight back into town and turn it in. It's up to you if this is what you want to do, but I find it to be very fast and efficient. Once you finish the mining quest for the NPC in town, you'll see that when you go back to the Smith, the mining section is now unlocked. Once inside the mining section, you'll see that there's a bunch of different options for crafting. You can now use your copper if you want to craft a couple relics, and once you've crafted the relic, you can decide whether or not you want to keep it or not. It does cost 25 copper each, so make sure it's something that you actually want to spend right off the bat. You might want to save your copper for later. You'll also see that a bunch of different materials that you can craft have different mining level requirements. So as you go through mining, you'll notice that you can up your mining level, which will then unlock those requirements. Since we are back from turning in all those quests, let's go through and use some of the gold. You can now use the gold to craft yourself some legendary gear. And maybe if you get lucky, you'll find pieces that will actually work for you. If not, just keep trying. You'll eventually get what you want. You also have the ability to throw some of this gear on your mercenary, and that's something that will definitely help you over time. When selecting gear to put on your character, I always like to look for maximum mana, maximum health, or armor. Having those three stats are very important at the beginning, because if you want to spam your skills to do more damage, it's going to cost a lot of mana, and if you're wanting to take hits without dying, you're going to want to have extra armor and a lot of HP. When you're out in the different zones fighting mobs, you can see your map a lot clearer than you can in town. So make sure you go out and test out your map settings under options and see if the colors and the scaling is what you actually like. In the stats menu, you can see what your character's stats are. By highlighting it with your cursor, it'll tell you what exactly the stat is and what it does. So if it's something that you need to learn, feel free to go through your stats one at a time and highlight it with your cursor. Hero levels are basically like Paragon from Diablo. Once you hit the max level, which is 100 in this game, you'll start gaining hero levels, and then you can stack more skill points into your character. You can unlock a mercenary by going over to Garnor, the guy who's watching over the dummy in town. I already have my mercenaries unlocked, but to purchase either a melee or a ranged mercenary, you will need 10,000 rubies each. Once you've purchased these mercenaries, you no longer will have to purchase them ever again. They are permanently unlocked and can be used every season moving forward. Going back to the stats page, you can now go into the mercenary section and you can apply abilities to your mercenary. This will greatly help you while progressing through each map. I recommend starting off by putting points into your mercenary so that he can do more damage. That way you can clear the maps quicker. As you grow further and further into your progression of leveling, you might want to respec your merc to give you a shield and or take partial damage for you whenever you get hit. Certain dungeons, such as the pumpkin cellar that I am in right now, have hidden areas. Be aware of these areas because some of them can actually get you killed if you don't know what you're doing. Such as jumping over these borders right here. If you don't know exactly where the trail is, you could kill yourself by jumping out of the map. So I don't recommend doing so unless you have the flight ability first, but it's up to you. Feel free to do whatever you want. Each one of the zone dungeons happens to have a lot of boxes and a lot of mobs inside. It's a good way to get levels really quick. It's also a good way to get some rubies saved up and or maybe find some relics. They do sometimes happen to be harder than other zones, so pay attention to your health, make sure you don't die, make sure you don't get swarmed by mobs, and watch out for booby traps because they're all over the place. In order to open up all these chests, you're going to need keys. So this is another importance in the game, is if you see keys laying around on the ground, make sure you run over and pick them up. Later, once you reach the furthest difficulty in this game, you will have the opportunity to do these dungeons and get more rubies from them. At the end of each dungeon there will be a chest, and you can open that to get rubies and or unique drops. This is something that's only obtainable in the furthest difficulty. Also, these dungeons aren't unlocked in the hardest difficulty. You must find a key that only drops from random mobs in the map, and they're quite uncommon, so you'll have to do a bunch of farming in order to find these unique keys. And they drop randomly, they don't just drop in the zone. So you might be farming the map over and over and finding keys for different dungeons that you don't want to do. So just remember, this is a grinding game, have fun with it, and I wouldn't say go out of your way to farm the keys. I'd say just let them drop while you're actually just grinding and having fun. There are very useful relics in this game, and one of those relics happens to be the magnet. The suction on the magnet is pretty nice. It gives you the suck that you've been waiting for, Kappa. The magnet gives you suction that is very nice. The magnet gives you the big suck. The magnet gives your character the ability to pull rubies and gold in straight to your character from quite a distance away. This way, you won't have to run over the items with your own character. I think that is a very good relic that is used even for endgame players. Out of all the active relics in the game, the one that most of us players enjoy the most is called Mario Pipe. Mario Pipe gives you the ability to jump over objects. It also helps you speed up your character's movement if you want, so you can use it to just run around the map quicker. But most players, what we use it for the most is when you end up getting stuck in a structure, you can instantly teleport out of being stuck. It helps quite a bit, and it's definitely used a lot, especially in hardcore. Monkey King Bar is one of the flight relics that I mentioned earlier. I'm gonna go ahead and grab this because the chances of finding another flight relic is very poor, and this is definitely one of the better of the three options. I definitely recommend everybody pick up Monkey King Bar because movement speed is awesome. You can see that once you have flight, you can stand over things such as these spike traps and take 0 damage. These dungeons are located randomly throughout the map system, Most of them will always have a relic at the end, so if you're willing to risk it, this is a good way to collect relics. But as you can see by this one, it has a ton of guillotines, and like you saw earlier, getting hit by one of them will take away half your life. I don't recommend testing your luck by running through these, because it's a good way to get yourself killed and you lose all your relics in softcore, or your whole account will get wiped if you're in hardcore. In fighting bosses such as act bosses like Gurag, you'll see that you can have the ability bar down below to show the skills that the boss is about to summon. This comes in handy, but I for one do not use it. I feel like it kind of gets in the way. I'd rather be able to watch my surroundings without having it on. One thing I find to be very helpful is after you've cleared a whole act and defeated the boss at the end, once you've entered the next town, take this opportunity to sell all the items that you don't want so you can get a bunch of gold saved up, then go back to the smith and start crafting a bunch of legendaries again. These legendaries will now be higher level than the ones you were using before, so potentially they'll have way more stats and better buffs for your character. While you're traveling throughout the map system, you'll find two different shrines in the game, and one of them is a boss shrine and one of them is a chaos shrine. This one right here is the boss shrine, and it will always summon a boss for you to kill. There is a chance that it will drop very awesome loot, so they are worth it as long as you don't feel like you're threatened and might die. Chaos shrines, I do not have the option of showing you a chaos shrine at this moment, because I am playing on a new character, but they're basically a demon holding a dice above their head that's spinning, and when you run into them, they will, for the most part, roll the dice and give you something very valuable, or a buff, or potentially summon a boss. In the Frozen Lands, there is a dungeon that seems to always appear called the Ancient City. In the Ancient City, this is very, very helpful for a new player, because once you've cleared the map, there's a box at the very end that is a purple box. This box does not require a key to open, but has a very high probability of dropping mythical items. That way you have purple items really early on in the game, and you don't have to farm for as many later on. Purple boxes also have the opportunity to drop a bunch of keys, and possibly relics. There is the possibility of opening a purple chest and also finding a mysterious hat. This is just a cosmetic that's offered through the game that you can put on in the shop at some other point. When fighting Grim Reaper, it's best to try to stand in the line of the blue skull ring. That way you don't get hit by these skulls. These skulls actually take out a lot of your health, and there's a good chance that you could insta-die if you have really low health. A lot of players don't know that after you beat Reaper, you actually have to walk over and hit his scythe, because if you don't hit his scythe that's on the ground, you won't clear the stage. Some people I've seen in general chat asking how do I beat Reaper because I have to keep resetting because it gets glitched. It's not that it's glitched, it's just that you're not hitting the side. Once you've reached the map called Dry Hills, there's a chance to find a dungeon called Sand Cave. Sand Cave is very awesome for a new player. It not only has a bunch of mob density for getting XP, but there's always a random relic at the end of the dungeon. This is a good way to collect a whole set of relics for your character really quick if you want, because you can run the dungeon, and if you find what you want, you pick it up, and if you don't find what you want, you could just vote reset and then do it again. As you can see, having Mario Pipe really helps out in situations like this in these dungeons. It allows you to skip and manipulate the dungeon without having to do every single objective that it wants you to do. Looks like I didn't find anything good. I guess we'll just move on. Something you might find while running around the map is a Chaos Tower. Chaos Towers are dungeons that give you a wave-based challenge. Each wave gets a little bit harder until you get to the last wave, which will have a boss. Once you move up in difficulty, you also have more waves to beat, and they offer 2 boss rooms instead of 1. Chaos Towers is a very good way to get gear and a very good way to level up quickly. But be careful, because the level of the mobs are very high in these dungeons, and there's a whole bunch of mobs that will come out all at once. So if you can't take on like 50 mobs all at once, it might be a little challenging for you, and it might not be worth it for you at the beginning. So use your best judgment when taking on stuff like the Chaos Tower. Later, once you get to the max difficulty, there's a quest line that's available in the Chaos Tower, and by completing this quest line, you'll be offered to fight another boss in this game that is unique. And each unique boss in this game has a chance to drop unique boss set items. When running Chaos Towers on the hardest difficulty, every time you complete said tower, you will get a 1 out of 10 on your quest line. Basically, you have the option to then find the tower a second or third time or whatnot and turn in the quest for a reward, or you have the option to continue on throughout the quest doing multiple towers until you hit 10 out of 10. Once you hit 10 out of 10, this is when you can fight the boss at the end of the tower. If you decide to turn in the quest line early for a reward, you'll then either get rubies, a random rune, or possibly a satanic drop. But this is one of the easiest ways to get boss runes, which are the most sought after runes in the game. So if by chance you don't want to take on the boss at the end and instead farm boss runes, this would be the easiest way to do so, and that's just by turning in rewards over and over again to the tower. Each act boss has its own unique skills and mobs, some of which you have to kill the mobs first before you can even damage the boss. So keep this in mind as you're running through killing the bosses. You can't just tank a boss's damage right off the bat, and you might have to clear the room of mobs before you can even damage the boss. Some bosses, such as Damien, have a huge AoE that they tend to spam all over the map. Watch out and try to figure out his patterns on when he's going to summon these beams and such, because as you can see, when you take a hit from it, it's pretty devastating. Also, Damien is the only boss where you have to fight him twice. When you're on the second stage of Damien, my advice is to stay on the initial platform next to the portal. The reason why is because Damien will break all of the pieces of the flooring, and if you happen to be standing on that flooring when it breaks, guess what? It doesn't matter if you have flight, you're still gonna get insta-killed. So, stay on the initial portal area, that way you don't have to worry about such things. If you do happen to have flight though, once all the floor panels are busted, feel free to just fly over top of the spike pit. You won't take any damage whatsoever, and it might be easier for you to evade attacks. Once you make it to Mount Fuji, there is a dungeon called Fuji Crater. This unique dungeon is by far probably the best dungeon in the whole game for a new player. Why? Because at the very end, you have the opportunity to open up 2 purple chests. Not just 1, but 2. And in each one of those chests is a chance to get another mythical item and or a relic. Also, this dungeon provides a ton of ore, so if you're looking to upgrade your mining level, feel free to come back to this dungeon over and over again and just sit there and mine, because it's very opportune for both mining and getting gear. It's as easy as clearing it in a straight line. You don't have to open up any of the side walls unless you want, and then just running to the end and opening up the box. Once you're done with that, if you don't find what you want, just hit vote reset, use the teleporter, and come back and do it over and over again. Once you reach Sea of Carponia on Act 5, be careful, because now you have to breathe. Your character now is in a zone where he's underwater, so in order to breathe you need to walk over to the air bubbles to recharge his gauge. You can see under your character that there's a gauge bar, and that gauge bar is a light blue color. If you see the gauge bar starting to go down, that means your character's running out of oxygen. All it takes is for you to walk over to the air bubble vents that are coming from the ground, stand over it for a couple seconds, and your gauge will go back to max. If by chance you happen to have a relic called King Karp's Head, this relic will give you the opportunity to breathe underwater. So if by chance you want to run this map over and over again, all you really need to keep yourself from drowning is that relic. Do I recommend having this relic? No, because it's not used that often outside of this zone, and on top of that, most players don't like to be in that zone because it scares them, so nobody really uses that relic to begin with. But if you find it along the way and you feel like that's something you want, by all means, grab the relic. Once you get to Satan, he's not actually all that hard. What he really has that you have to watch out for is, first he summons 2 hands. You have to beat the hands before he'll actually take damage, so make sure you destroy those ASAP. And then the only 2 or 3 moves that he has is, 1, he'll summon some mobs to try to fight you. They're not too hard. Secondly, he spits out a puddle of lava on the ground. Try not to run into that because it could kill you really quickly if you have very low fire resist. And then secondly, he'll send out a wall of flames. It's not too hard to dodge the wall of flames. You can stand in between. There's a small opening gap in the wall, or you can just walk down to the bottom of the screen in the arena and the firewall stops before it gets there. It's up to you how you want to fight Satan, but I feel like this is one of the easier fights between all of the bosses. Now that you've completed all 6 acts, there is a 7th act, but this is part of a DLC, so if you actually want to go and kill Mebius at the end of the 7th act, you're going to have to buy the DLC content. Now that normal mode is complete, you can now go back to the main lobby and change your difficulty to nightmare mode if you feel like. You can see that now that I've progressed through all of normal mode, upgraded my character, and found some decent gear, that nightmare mode doesn't seem to be very hard for me at all. Once you move up in difficulty, if it still seems way too easy for you, feel free to go back, restart the game, and slide the difficulty meter to a different difficulty. That way you get a little bit more experience, a little bit better loot drops, and it's a little more challenging. Inside the options tab, you'll see a shop tab. You can click on that and it'll bring you to the whole shop page, where for example you can find the expansion pack if you want to upgrade your stash quantity or your inventory quantity. There's also a section for clothing so that you can change the way your actual character looks. A lot of the clothing costs rubies though, So what I recommend is waiting till the end of the season when you have too much rubies and you don't know what to spend it on. That way you can go through and start unlocking a bunch of the clothing and HUD and characters and all the stuff within the shop without worrying about ruining your season. Inside the shop, you'll also see seasonal rewards. This is something that players have earned by competing in the leaderboards. It's not completely everyone's cup of tea, but it's one thing that keeps me playing this game, knowing that next season there's a chance that I can have some cool cosmetic that no one else has. You'll also see that there's a Steam Inventories tab. While you're playing the game, you're gonna get notified by Steam saying, hey, you found something or you got a new item. Basically, it's a chest that you unlocked by playing the game. And in order to unlock these boxes, if you really want to, you're gonna have to go into Steam and you're gonna have to purchase a key. Keys are not free in this game, so if you want the cosmetics that come with the free box, you're gonna have to pay for it. There is also the option to share the items that you find within those boxes. So if you happen to have friends that purchase the items but they don't want them, they can send it to you via Steam. Yeah, that's an option. How do leaderboards work? Well, once you get to the hardest difficulty, you can talk to Dr. Tinkerdink inside of Town of Anoia, and he'll ask you if you want to go into the wormholes. Wormholes is kind of like greater rifts from Diablo. So once you progress through a wormhole, at the very end you'll beat a boss, and then you can hit a post that will basically take you to the next level. Once you've hit the post and went through the portal, it'll send you back to town, and then you just go back to Dr. Tinkerdink again, tell him you want to go back in, and now you'll be progressed an extra level further. So that's how leaderboards work in this game and how you get a seasonal reward. You have to progress through the wormholes, and the further you can travel through the wormholes, the higher your rank will be on the leaderboards. So if you want to try to take on the leaderboards and get a seasonal reward for the next season, remember, you just have to push wormholes. One thing I would also like to point out is when you're in the lobby, you have the option of clicking on the Join Hero Siege Discord server. This is very helpful because in the Discord server, you can talk one-on-one with some of the lead developers, and you can get information for builds. You can also report bugs and or cheaters, and you have the option to do a trade chat, which is in the Discord only. So if you happen to not be able to do the auction house from within the game, you can still make trades with people via the Discord channel. The Discord channel is also where you would find announcements ahead of time before they get posted on Steam. So if you're looking to find out what the newest patch was all about, or if by chance something happened in game and you don't know why, checking Discord is probably the first option you want to do. With that being said, thank you guys so much for coming out and watching this video. It means a lot to me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you comment down below and let me know what you think. If you have any questions, feel free to come check me out on Twitch. I'll have a link down below. And I can't wait for you guys to see my next video. Thank you guys. Have a good one.